Hello, welcome everyone to this first edition of Nextv Ad USA. My name is Juan Pablo Conti, and I am the Director of Events North America at Daytaxis. We are webcasting live, and we really want to thank the hundreds of executives joining us today from across the country. I was just looking at the registration list. It's impressive to see that every one of the key actors in the TV and streaming video advertising ecosystem will be tuning in during the next 5 hours. The distributors are with us today, both traditional and virtual MVPDs, the cable networks, the national broadcasters, the AVODs, the fast service providers, the connected TV vendors, who, as we all know, are becoming now both major distributors and in some cases inventory owners, the ad tech, the agencies, the all important demand side, right? As in any other business, it's the buyers who will ultimately decide the direction of this industry. And the buyers have good news for publishers these days, but they also have some burning questions. Good news is that marketers still believe that no other medium is capable of delivering advertising messages with the power and the engagement that television offers. But these same marketers are now demanding that, just as digital media has been doing for over 2 decades now, so should the TV world embrace the use of targeting, optimization, measurement, and attribution. What the buy side is asking at the end of the day is a very simple question when you think about it. Give me the scale of traditional television, but only if it comes with the precision and the accountability of digital media. The exciting thing about this particular point in time, I think, is that we are at a crossroads where, for the very first time in the history of television, this is now possible. We have 5 panels today, filled, believe me when I say filled with the nation's leading industry experts to tell you all about the latest developments, the new tactics, the upcoming rollouts, the remaining challenges, and the huge opportunities around advanced TV advertising in the United States. Just very briefly, before I hand over to Jamie Power, who will be moderating the first of these exciting discussions. For those of you accessing one of our virtual conferences for the first time, you should know that the Swapcard platform that you're using will not only allow you to watch each of the discussion sessions in the program, but you will also be able to network, share experiences, and exchange ideas with the rest of the attendees and speakers. So be sure to make the most out of these tools. Finally, I want to especially thank the sponsors who make this event possible. So to our silver sponsors, Edgecast, Penthera, and Harmonic, our bronze sponsors, Conviva, and our media partners, Variety Intelligence Platform, thank you for your support. Jamie, you have an all-star opening lineup of speakers ready to be moderated. So I will hand over to you now when I get ready to join the rest of the audience to hear and learn from these experts. Jamie?
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the opening panel for Nextv Ad USA 2021. Like Juan said, my name is Jamie Power, and I'm the Chief Data Officer and Head of Platform at Cadent. We have an amazing group of panelists, starting with Hassan Rahim, VP of Advanced TV at A4, Division of Altice USA, Jason Brown, the Addressable Advertising Lead for Warner Ad Sales, Larry Allen, VP and GM of Addressable Enablement at Comcast Advertising, and Travis Coles, SVP of Advanced Advertising at CBS Viacom. So today, the panelists are going to discuss how addressable TV is being scaled at a national level and what their organizations are doing to help drive the growth. I'm going to start easy, and I'm going to first ask you guys all to give me just one word on how you guys would describe the state of addressable advertising in the US today.
Sure, I'll go first. One word, I would say evolving.
All right, cool. I like it. Hassan,
I would say value.
valued. Okay, these are good words. Larry, what do you got?
In one word, it's impossible.
That
Exciting.
addressable is impossible, or
How's
it's impossible for addressable, or it's impossible
One
to
word.
describe?
One word is hard. How about exciting? You know?
Okay. And Jason?
I'm going to be provocative. I believe it's scaled already. Scaled.
I agree. Okay, perfect. So I have a bunch of questions for you guys. I'll direct them to, one or two of the panelists. However, if you guys have an opinion on anything, feel free to jump in at any point. I'm going to start with Hassan because Altice USA traces back its addressable roots to Cablevision, right? So that's the early 2000s, probably the first in market with addressable advertising. You guys are also the founding members of Go Addressable, so been at the forefront of addressability for a while. So, what at A4 specifically, what are you guys doing now to stay at the forefront and keep kind of pushing addressable forward?
Thank you, Jamie. So I would say, you're 100% correct, right? We started this a long time ago. And so as a result, one of the things that we're 100% dedicated to is always upgrading our technology to keep pace and or jump ahead at the very least, right, with what else is available in the marketplace. In addition to that, we are always looking at increasing our direct integrations with data and measurement companies. There are more now, of course, than there were in 2000. And so just staying ahead of that as well, just so that we can continually provide additional avenues for marketers as well as programmers as they're going forth and conquering addressability on live television. And then finally, collaborating with our partners, right? As you mentioned earlier with the Go Addressable Consortium, the idea there is to simplify in addition to scale and educate. And I think that with the combination of these three core pillars, we are well on our way to making this, as easy as buying a book on Amazon, for lack of a better word. So that's the idea.
So that's the idea. What would you say, like the biggest way that you guys are making it easier or simpler for the buy side to transact?
I think at the end of the day, it's having uniformity, right? At the beginning, middle, and end of the process, because there are lots of moving parts, right? Much like there are in digital advertising, it's just simplified for the end user, but there's a lot going on in the back, right? And so we're all working together to make sure that there's a common language, there's, there are as many common metrics as possible, common processes, et cetera, when it comes, starting with the actual data segments that are being used for targeting, of course, in a privacy protected manner, all the way through to, pacing of the campaign, to reporting, delivery, measurement, et cetera. So it's coming up with that minimum viable product.
Okay. All right. So the second pillar of Go Addressable is scale. And JB, you opened up and you said, that you thought addressability already is scaled. So if we look at Warner Media, you guys have linear, you guys now are bringing OTT to market with DirecTV Stream. How much progress do you think the industry has made towards growing distribution of addressable, and what specific steps has Warner Media ad sales team been doing to kind of meet the expectations of the market?
Yeah. The reason why I said scale as my optimal word is because if you think about just kind of the last, it's probably been 11 years now, right? Since this product was launched in the US. And it started with the satellite operators and the cable operators. And so over the last 11 years, we've really built out the infrastructure. It's now national. It is all the data providers are negotiated. So, for all those advertisers that want to use third-party data, all the MVPDs and satellite operators have negotiated data relationships. We're at a point now where, 3 years ago or so, we started to go beyond linear addressable to CTV extension. So in the case of DirecTV and Warner Media, where I work, that's adding DirecTV Stream to every buy. I know that Dish and Sling are doing the same thing. So we've kind of grown all the infrastructure, and we've proved to the marketplace the value, as Hassan has said, within the 2 minutes of time that all of the MVPDs and satellite operators get as part of their carriage agreements per hour. So that's built, and companies like yourselves, Jamie, with Aperture, building a multi-seller tool to automate the process. That's built. You've integrated all your data partnerships so to make it easier from a technology standpoint. Companies like LiveRamp are right behind with their multi-seller marketplace and automation. And so the next things is just kind of to go into, national minutes, as they call it. I don't know why they call it national minutes, but the 14 minutes of time as for the programmers, but on an infrastructure that's already built and scaled.
Okay. And then being you've been selling addressable for, a long time, maybe 8 years, close to a decade, how would you say the evolution of the buyer has changed?
Yeah, I think it's, there was a pretty cool study that came out in the fourth quarter of this year. So early in September, I think it was Advertising Perceptions, kind of in the US talked about how buyers feel about this product, where it stacks up in their media mix. And don't quote me on this, but I think it was like 7 percentage points higher from the period last year. So like somewhere around 35 to 40% felt like it was a must buy. Another 35 or 40% said it's a part of a complimentary buy. Very few of them were like, this is still in the testing phase. So the buyers are definitely putting this as part of their plans, from the start.
Okay, thank you. Travis, quick question for you. Being, Vantage and CBS Viacom is the first programmer to bring a, scaled national addressable product in market. How would you say the evolution of the buying community has been?
I think that's actually been one of the core things that Vantage has done for addressable is help go to market and tell buyers this is how you can buy this. It's not only as a standalone product, but as part of an overarching media campaign, right? Here's how you can leverage the power of addressability in tandem with digital, in tandem with national linear, and really drive the campaign strategy using each inventory source for what it's best at. I think people have really come around to this. And, it's funny when people talk on panels like this and ask questions about like, what is the status of addressability, right? And everybody sits up here and like, it's scaled. And everybody's like, well, I just want to talk about how it's difficult for operations or where measurement's at. And look, there's challenges for all different types of advertising across the board. But we're seeing, Vantage right now has access to a 50 million household linear addressable footprint that we can incorporate into our media campaigns. We've done, direct MVPD partnerships. We handle the operations for our buyers. We've made huge steps in reporting to help drive and show the value here. And for our buyers, I think they're starting to recognize like, hey, this is not hard to buy, right?
So you think that we're at the point that it's easy to buy and sell?
I think we're getting close, right? I think that from a sell perspective, certainly we've crossed the threshold. Addressable linear television is television, right? And people love TV impressions. And it's a great inventory source. You can augment it, you can bring data and targeting all these other things. And I think people have really kind of wrapped their heads around that and are looking at this as part of an overall campaign as opposed to a test or a pilot or some kind of new thing they want. So yeah, I think we're there.
All right. Well, that's music to my ears. All right, Larry, you have a ton of advanced TV experience, 4 years, leading ad product strategy at Warner Media, now at Comcast. So I think this gives you kind of a unique perspective coming from the distributor. How are your conversations going when you're talking to the programmers about national addressability, bringing it to scale with Comcast, and ultimately the ease of execution and connecting the buy and the sell side to make it easy?
I mean, look, every programmer is leaning in. What Jason said, they recognize the value. They recognize that the distributors have been doing this for a long time, and the buyers want more access to more inventory, right? They want access to the 14 minutes. They want to be able to buy addressable TV adjacent to specific program, similar to what Vantage is doing today. They all see that blueprint of success, and they actually want to follow suit now. And I think the big thing that we talk about is simplicity, aggregation, and interoperability between both what we do within the set-top box, but also within the digital and CTV environment, right? So them being able to use their ad server and control their own inventory to make decisions. For the last 2 to 3 years, we've had multiple programmers where we supported their national minutes addressably, but it's been under a managed service. And so that added complexity and turnaround time challenges and things that just are friction in the process. It works. Campaigns delivered successfully once they were up and running, delivered value. And we've proved that addressable is better version of TV for a marketer. But now what we're doing is we're at this turning point where, as Hassan mentioned earlier, we're all getting in line and saying, this is how we can all do it in a similar fashion, so it's consistent and that the programmer has the keys to actually drive the car. Before they were kind of pushing through a spreadsheet or an email instructions. Now they're taking back control of the inventory and they can execute faster and more campaigns. And that's going to lead just to the flywheel of momentum.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately too, it's how do you guys think that we handle clash management, right? Like, if the viewer is just viewing TV content, they don't know if it's local to the national to, if it's streaming, if it's, they don't know where they're getting it from. They just know this is how many ads they're seeing that are relevant to them, and how do you manage the frequency levels?
I mean, we're managing for that. So the spec that we've defined with the other distributors actually support the programmer sending campaign metadata instructions to all of us, so that the ad decision system knows when there's conflict. And so that is really, that control of the inventory is really important. And that's here, right? We're in process of rolling that out with multiple programmers in the first quarter, which is super exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key to moving the market forward. Okay, so from a measurement standpoint, Hassan, Jason, Larry, JB, if you want to jump in this, whomever, but where are we in terms of measurement, media reporting, effectiveness of the campaign, standards? Where are we today and where do we need to go? Hassan, you want to start?
Sure. Look, I think measurement is like grading homework, right? And most people want to have some third-party verification on that, as I would if I was in their shoes, right? And so what we're doing at Altice is making sure that we're connected to as many reputable third-party measurement vendors as there are. And there are new ones popping up occasionally, every other month, it seems, which is all good, right? So the bottom line for addressable advertising on linear television is it is probably the most accurate, real information that you can get, period, right? There's no fraud, right? I mean, it's a completely different world. It's like, dare I say, it's what digital aspires to be, right? We had the secret weapon the whole time. We just needed to turn the switch on. The switch is now on, right? And so we not only provide, and I'm sure this is true for the other MVPDs and satellite providers as well, not only do we have incredibly robust internal measurement and analytics, but we also partner with third parties just to make sure that the buyer is getting exactly what they want. right? And so that's huge, in my opinion.
Travis, any thoughts on the measurement piece?
Yeah, I think when I look at the current state of addressable and where we're at, the measurement piece is the piece that I'm hoping moves the fastest forward. It's the piece that we really need to be in a better spot, I think. It's so important to show how this works. And from our perspective, right, when we do an addressable campaign, it works across these different MVPDs, across these different cable and satellite companies. And we, third parties, to Hassan's point, people need third parties, right? Buyers want third party verification, but we also need those third parties to be able to standardize the different measurement and the different reporting metrics that are coming out of the addressable providers. We need them to be able to collect all of that data, not just one MVPD or two MVPDs worth, so they have to model up. We need them to have access to the full footprint so they can measure a single campaign that's served across a multi-MVPD inventory set. And we need them to be able to measure that against national linear, against digital, and deduplicate and understand how are these campaigns really driving results. This is one of the reasons that we've partnered with OpenAP on OpenID to help try to push some of those pieces forward. And we're working with all of our partners to help further support third-party measurement, to help activate with new privacy-compliant data flows, first-party measurement, first-party optimization, and really make this thing feel more cohesive. I would say that from an operations perspective, it's easy, right, for us to sit there and interact with managed services, or for folks that are further along, server to server, and glue that together for our buyers so they don't see what's going on behind the scenes, right? I think that was a really great point Hassan made earlier, where there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, but it should just feel easy. And I think we do a really good job of that. The measurement piece is the piece that at the end of it, I want to be able to show, hey, of all 50 million households that we were able to serve across this campaign, here's how this performed. And I don't know if we're there yet. I think there's a lot of companies that are making good progress and have a lot of great data assets and that are well known and have the right reputation to be able to solve this problem. ComScores, your video amps, those types of folks, 605. I think they're making great headway. But I really want to see it done all in one place for a single campaign. If that happens, I'll be very excited.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say they want fewer, better metrics, like just to be able to create benchmarks and kind of move on. All right, so Jason, the distributors are figuring out ways to capture and analyze set-top box faster than they have in the past. What opportunities does this create for national addressable television?
Yeah, I think distributors are also advertisers, so I kind of answer that in two ways. So at a company like ourselves, DirecTV, we're very acquisition and retention based. So we're kind of eating our own dog food, and using addressable to message to, current customers for upgrades, or maybe lapsed customers with incentives. Of course, we're very invested with our programming partners. So we're using our viewership data to drive rating points, watch season 1, households watch season 1, retarget for season 2 as an example. So that is definitely a use case. Another use case is, the agencies themselves, over the last few years in the US have really, or nationally or globally, have really invested in third-party data companies that are kind of built on identity. Think like Dentsu acquiring Merkle a few years back, Merkle being a company that was kind of born out of the direct mail world, where they had identity on name and address, and they built out a lot of tools, CRM tools for advertisers based off of that identity. And they are very invested in growing and building, or they have built their own people-based planning tools, and they're interested in these types of agencies are interested in data integrations, which for set-top box data. And so a lot of those kind of relationships have become more strategic as folks like ourselves have looked to partner on set-top box data integrations and, and of course, media partnerships as well. So there's been a lot of use cases in unpacking that question a little bit.
Okay. From like an ACR perspective, does ACR data help with the deduplication? How, if at all, is ACR data used? I'll start with you, Larry.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're using it in two ways. One is, additive from a measurement perspective. In some ways, you could look at it as a truth set because it's at the glass. It knows everything that has been displayed on that TV set. And so you can use it for calibration in measurement. In some cases, people are using it as kind of their core asset. And this is where the measurement companies are using that data in a lot of ways to fill in gaps across areas of the ecosystem where they don't have access to data. And so use it and then model up from there. On the other side is using it for kind of filling in households that are not addressably enabled today, right? So they're using it as a way to actually, in tandem with the implementation that we provide, they add additional devices or households into the mix so people can, access, or marketers can access those homes or those individuals watching on a TV that might not be otherwise connected to a set-top box or another method of viewing.
Travis, anything to add on ACR?
I think ACR has fantastic possibilities to continue to drive measurement forward. And as we look at third-party measurement vendors, the folks that have the big data sets, the ones that are looking at set-top box, ACR combinations, and really kind of throwing their broadest footprint, that's who I'm excited to watch solve this, right? Because they're the ones that have the best sort of underlying asset set to work with MVPDs to grab addressable exposure data and really start to run this deduplication, right? And that's really what this is about, is we want to get to a place where you can see the deduplicated reach for a campaign across all of this inventory. And ACR is going to be an important piece of that, especially for folks that operate a large broadcast network. I think ACR is, again, good for calibration. It's a nice data set to show how folks are consuming content outside of a set-top box. So it's got a role to play. It's got a piece of the puzzle. I think, to Larry's point, some folks are building all of their solution around that. I don't know if that's the right answer, but I think it does feel like it does cover some gaps that need to be covered in order to really solve measurement across the industry.
Okay, so deduplication comes up a lot. I want to shift a little bit into CPMs because I think that deduplication and reach comes into that. So Hassan, from a CPM standpoint, there's a lot of misnomers that addressable isn't efficient. You're better off buying national. How do you see the evolution of CPMs as it relates to addressable advertising?
So that's an interesting question, but I'll throw another question at you, which is, a CPM is a currency, right? We use it to buy things. What we're buying it for isn't necessarily 100% connected to how we buy it, right? So one of the advantages of running an addressable campaign is measurement, right? And that's where, with addressability on linear, I think you mentioned it earlier, Jamie, the consumer has no idea if they're receiving an addressable ad, a local ad, or a national ad. You're just getting, hopefully, a better experience, which should drive up engagement, right? Which is another one of those metrics that we're all trying to identify, and possibly conversion or action, right? So as a part of the full funnel activity, having an addressable campaign on television, which no one would argue, I don't believe, has the biggest reach, biggest impact still today, right? It's the big screen that drives the other activity. There's really no downside from my perspective in being able to do it all the way from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel with the same audience segment in mind. And so today it's CPM driven. Tomorrow it may be performance driven, right? But it's just how we transact, right? It's just a currency. So at the end of the day, it's really results in value. I'll go back to the word I used at the beginning of the panel that I think actually drives adoption, right? And we just need to help make that as clear as possible to the buy side as well as the sell side as to, hey, there's a value in value that needs to get unlocked, and it's happening already, right? So it's just going to continue, in my opinion.
JB, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the buyer or the client, they're looking at all their media frankly, on how it, drives an outcome, and then, how much reach they got against their particular target. So, and I think this is an area we can do better at, like as an industry. Like I think of some of the reports that we have on the back end that show this, right? We're trying to show what is the net effective CPM on an outcome, and whatever their KPI could be, sales or website visitation. And we typically do a test and control. So test group is in the target and exposed, control group is in the target and not exposed. And then some of the time we bring in a third cell, which is their national TV campaign or a random sample. And typically we do that on that outcome, right? And then later on in our ARS report, we show what is the cost per incremental reach against the target. But it's buried. It's like, I think if there's a way we can, as an industry, somehow lift these two metrics, because those are the two metrics that prove, to Hassan's point, the value of why you should have addressable as part of every media plan, because it's actually way more efficient, typically, than anything you could buy on those two metrics.
Just to add something, JB, I think part of it is, frequency came up earlier, right? So it's also about incremental, unduplicated.
Right.
That's really what, if I'm a marketer, I don't want to waste my money hitting the same people with the same message over and over, which tends to happen unless you can use these tactics to ensure that you're getting the most, again, value for your marketing dollar.
So JB, to your point, like the cost per incremental reach point is information that you guys are giving on the end of the campaign. However, if that information was front, it might help the agency justify, buying it, because if they saw that, by adding addressable in, it was a much more efficient way to reach that audience, or adding whatever in, but it's just, how do you mix it against that audience the most efficient way? So are you seeing the buy side start to ask for some of that information on the front, or the buy side just getting used to those metrics on the back?
Mostly on the back. And you bring up a good point. Like, look, we have this issue where an entire marketplace is graded on the currency of a linear CPM. Yep. And we have to get out, we've done some good work to get out of that. But if there's some way to expose this, this is a big, tall ask, and somehow move a marketplace on value and on a different metric, which is cost per incremental reach or net effective CPM against the target, that is going to really help all of us move to the right mix of kind of lower CPM awareness media and more effective, kind of highly precise addressable, because it's not one or the other. It should be combined in many cases, especially for a product that has kind of a longer life cycle, where you have a launch, you have a sales event, you have a long-term value metric where you want to retain them. We need to get to a point where we can measure and we can provide reporting on the back end across a full customer journey.
Yep. Larry, I've heard you on panels talk about, this subject, about how addressable, when it finally hits maturity in a fragmented market, you need to consider it, just to reach audiences at scale. So any color you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I would kind of add on to the comments that JB was making. We do need to do a better job of this, because like when we were scratching at this with the DDL campaigns, data-driven linear, where we were comparing apples to apples, like you were still buying a full national footprint, but we were highlighting, individual audience optimization would deliver better outcome, better value. I think the addressable evaluation is just the next step in that. And we do need to be more transparent and surface that. But I would argue that if an advertiser is trying to reach the light TV viewer, there's no better way to do that efficiently than with addressable, because you can identify who are the households in a certain market or across a wide geography that are light TV viewers and fit your target, and you can laser focus in on those. And yes, the CPM might be 2, 3x, 4x of the linear, but you're not burning, 60 million households, right? And that don't have any, need to get it because they've been over frequency and oversaturated, or they don't fit the target, or have no interest in the product, et cetera. So I do think that there's a big opportunity there for marketers to really lean in and make it a component of every campaign. But then also, when you're just thinking about frequency mitigation on a campaign, like addressable will ultimately be the way we deliver all TV, because you'll be able to say, I no longer want to deliver an ad to a household after I've reached them 3, 5, 7, 10 times, depending on your product category and what you're trying to achieve with the campaign. So whether you're going after a small target or a broad target, you're still going to want to use it for frequency management.
Yeah. And Travis, being Vantage has like a whole team of people that's helping educate the buy side. Do you think that you guys are effective because you're able to, help guide or, teach the advertiser when or how they should use the tactic? So it's not just bottom funnel, maybe use it on the top.
I think we just try to support what the advertiser's end goal is, right? We want to support from a measurement perspective, whatever metrics that our advertisers are using in order to measure the efficacy of their campaign, whether that's, cost per incremental reach, whether that's attribution, effectiveness. If we want to partner with folks to help understand how can we tie the data, campaign data, back to what the advertiser really cares about. And that's especially important for addressable media, right? Because addressable media, again, is hyper effective. So that only is a good thing to help folks understand the power of addressability. The CPM question is one, we've obviously been having that conversation with our buyers for a few years now in market. And I think it's an interesting question. Hassan made a really great point, right? A CPM is a currency metric, whereas a lot of these other measurement metrics are how we really kind of grade what happened. The most important thing from a currency metric is that buyers and sellers know how to transact against it, right? That we know how to trade media for dollars and feel like both sides got a fair deal. And I think that just like no one would say, how come my linear P18 to 49 CPM is different than F18 to 34 CPM, which is different than a digital CPM and all these other pieces, the addressable CPM component, right? As we pull together our various pricing strategies, we're just having that conversation with our buyers. And as they continue to buy and see the power of the media, then they can come back for the next campaign and really have a better sense for, hey, what is this transactional metric? I now know what this means. I now know I'm getting a great deal. I'm getting fair value. And now it's a metric I know how to trade against, which is really the only important thing.
Yes. Okay, so we're not going to go into it long, but Travis, while I have you, can you just quickly talk about privacy? On every panel it comes up, there's a lot of players coming in, there's new entrants, there's ACR, there's tons of data. How do we make sure that we're not, breaching anyone's data?
So, I think that from a privacy perspective, the easiest way is to never take receipt of the data you're not supposed to have. And there's a lot of companies that are now helping us do that. We look at folks we partner with, BlockGraph, OpenAP through their OpenID initiative. These are ways that we're leaning into this, right? So that we can leverage, fully anonymous, double-blind identifiers, things like that. Lean into those types of solutions to kind of stay on the forefront of the privacy question, which is continuing to evolve, both from a what does it mean, also, but from a technology offering perspective, right? And the solutions there are technological, right? A lot of the companies that are working here to connect these pipes, they're doing a lot of very neat and innovative stuff. And we're just leaning in to continue to support that. And as this evolves, we feel that the ability to stay compliant with the needs of privacy needs across these different media pieces will continue to be a solved problem as long as you are able to adapt and move your operations to support the newer solutions that are continuing to promulgate in the market.
Okay, Hassan, is it an advantage that usually distributors also have the broadband in the household? Does that help bring this all together?
I think it does, and it's more than an advantage. It's sort of like the guarantee or there's no greater source or cleaner source of truth, frankly, than that, right? From my perspective. So, we were talking about ACR and a lot of data matching companies and measurement companies are using different sources to sort of fill in the holes. There are no holes, right, when it comes to being an ISP, because that's what that means, right? Like that's where everything comes from and everything else is based off of. It's the backbone. It's the internet, for God's sakes, right? So yeah, I think the short answer is it makes a huge difference. And of course, we are incredibly privacy oriented, right? Because that is the core of everything. And so, just to echo what Travis was saying, we definitely are in a much cleaner, safer area than I think we were 15 years ago, where it was sort of being developed and it was unsure and, there were lots of different players. Privacy is probably more protected in addressable television advertising than it is in any other form of life, right? I mean, we keep hearing about data breaches left and right. Never happens with TV advertising, which is nice. And as far as the ISP being the single source of truth, I think there's something there that's very interesting, right? I mean, there's, again, it comes down to filling in the puzzle, if you will, in a privacy protected way, anonymized, et cetera, but with enough assurance that that waste that everyone is worried about is minimized to the greatest extent. So yes, I think it's long answer for a short answer is yes, it matters.
All right. I have one last question and then I'll do a speed round and then we'll wrap up. So we're seeing the availability of national addressable linear and VOD, ramp up. How do we think that that's going to continue to pace in 2022? Jason, what are your thoughts? Mr. Scale.
Yeah, so we are, as a distributor, we've enabled a large percentage of the programmers already. I would say that technically it's enabled. And I can't call them out. I want to, but there are certain programmers that are we're seeing a lot of flow through for national enablement. I think what has to happen is frankly, I think the programmers need to get together and say, hey, what flavor of addressable we're going to go with? It's going to be SASO, it's going to be MASO, we're going to do aggregation, because I don't think the buyer wants to emit multiple flavors. They probably want one. What measurement company you're going to work with, Comscore, Nielsen, other, and then are we going to go self-service and do it ourselves, or do we want to go managed service and work with the distributor? So I think it's just more of those things coming together. I'm sure Go Addressable is kind of one of the reasons for that. And we're good to go. So I see it as part of I see it beyond in 2022 as part of the upfront, definitely beyond, it'll go beyond testing in 2022.
Okay. So we have about 3 minutes left. Last question, I'm going to go around. If you could change one thing about today's addressable TV marketplace, what would it be? So I will start with Larry.
Great. So I believe in it. I mean, I think the demand side needs to just believe that it works and trust that it is better. Because I think we've proven it time and time again with campaigns, with individual distributors, with programmers that have run across multiple distributors. I think the proof is there and you need to lean in. And that's what I would change. The demand side, basically prioritizing it as part of this year's upfront.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably wallpaper the Comcast office with case studies of addressable working.
Yeah.
Okay, Travis.
Consistent measurement at the same scale we're able to serve at.
Okay.
That's the thing that I think would be most impactful in driving this piece forward, and the piece that I'm really excited for, and I think will be solved very, very soon.
Okay, Hassan.
To be honest, I wouldn't change anything quite yet, only because we're already agents of change, right? So we're already doing the work that needs to get done through Go Addressable and other industry-related collaborative consortium, right? Or consortia. So cheekily, I'll say nothing, but of course, I'm going to echo everything that's being said by everyone else here, right? We just need to have simplicity, scale, education, all the core tenets, frankly, of the Go Addressable consortium and just more collaboration, right? I mean, this is an everyone wins scenario.
Do you think that Go Addressable is going to be kind of the consortium to end all consortiums and finally push this over the line?
I don't know if there's such a thing, but I hope we'll help at least simplify some of the, or at least answer some of the questions that those that don't know the answers are asking, right?
Okay, thank you. And Jason?
I feel that on a national basis, that addressable is relatively scaled, but I don't think that's true on the local basis. And I'd love to see that change, where addressable goes to, kind of the long tail brands, marketers in the local markets.
All right, well, thank you guys all for joining the first session at the first panel in the United States. I hope everyone has a good holiday. The next session will pick up in 15 minutes at 12 Eastern Standard. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.